And Brian and Aileen and Chris and Nate will be available during that time this afternoon after lunch. They'll have their Zoom links online, so it'll be like an open classroom. So if you have any questions in regards to setting things up on Schoology, you'll be able to access them. I won't be online after lunch, but Brian and the team will be. So before we push forward with today's agenda, I just thought we would have a quick reflection again on the session that we had on Wednesday. And there are 4 questions that I just want to present to the group and just open it up for discussion. 4 questions are: what was new last week, or I mean on Wednesday, that you learned? What was difficult to grasp, and what would you like to sort of have a chat and go over again? What did you find that was interesting, and what do you want to know more about? So we're just going to spend 10 or 15 minutes just quickly debriefing on that, so I can just take some notes, and then I'll direct us to some Schoology posts that I've actually added to our course that have tried to capture some of the things as well. So I'm just going to pass it over to anybody who'd like to contribute. From what was presented on Wednesday, what did you find that was new or difficult to grasp to start with? Yeah, Brad.
Well, I was just going to say, I like the end, kind of like the breakdown of everything with Chris running the class, and then Brian doing his breakdown as well, and Nate doing the closing. Was pretty cool. I thought that was nice, kind of see like their aspect and how they're looking at it and how they run their classes too. So I kind of I enjoyed that.
So just on the back of that, Brad, it's a good point, is on the Schoology site, you'll see in one of the discussion threads I've set up, there's a document in there now called Planning for Success. And it's a document that captures the key points and strategies that Chris, Brian, and Nate covered in that session.
Awesome.
So I'm going to get creative. I'm going to have my cricket ball here. It's not a baseball, it's a cricket ball. It's a little bit harder, and I'm going to throw it to somebody, and I'm going to throw it to Pamela. Boom. You've got it. Did you catch it?
Yes, thank you.
2 hands, bring it in like this, yeah.
All right. I still had a question.
Sure.
When we're making our lessons plans, are we going to do it like we did back in the spring? Are we going to be in our teams? Or are we making our individual lesson plans?
It's all up to you from this point.
Okay.
So you've got and I think it's important, as we talked about on Wednesday. It gives you a bit of creativity, and it gives you the ability to be able to make it your own and fit in with your group.
Okay.
So that's just a guideline. It's a template. You don't have to do all those activities. You can add your own ones. You can add some new ones. Personally, if it was me, I'd probably pretty much will go with what has been done, because they put a fair bit of time and effort into it. But feel free to nuance it as however you want. Okay, handing it over to Rick. Anything you want to contribute, Rick? Any reflection?
Just like you said, I can see the amount of work that's gone into those lesson plans. It was kind of a weight off of my shoulders that, like you said, you can nuance the lesson if you need to, if you'd like to, but there's also like those lessons have already been prepared, so it's kind of like a safety net. So my biggest takeaway from Wednesday was that was a bit reassuring to me that that's one less thing that I would really need to focus on. Instead, I can focus on other things, like preparing my Schoology courses and things like that. So it's just.
And that's thanks for that, Rick. And that's the goal moving forward, is that unit plans will be prepared for you, and you'll be provided all the new unit plans, and then it'll be up to you to do whatever you want with them. But there'll always be that structure, and the aim is to reduce the amount of administration and work that you have to put into that, and focus, as you said quite aptly, on course development, developing your actual, preparing your resources and preparing for the teaching and learning, and thinking about assessment as well. We're going to talk a little bit more about assessment today as well. So thanks for that, Rick. Mark, how you doing?
I'm good. All right. Is it coming to me now?
It's got to you.
Got it. I had a meeting yesterday, so I left early, so I wasn't able to see the three people at the end, Brian. And so if I can get some clarity on what happened, maybe after we do our meeting, Alin, because I missed everything. I guess I'm okay. I mean, my brain is pretty fried. It's just this.
Yep.
And, you know, you just have to step away for a moment. But, I mean, I'll be fine. I mean, everybody is commenting on good things and using my own creativity. So I'll make it work.
Thanks, Mark. Yeah, I definitely appreciative that your brains must be a bit fried after this week, and there's a lot coming at you, because it's not only getting your head around a new curriculum rollout and structure, but also learning a new digital platform, content management platform in Schoology, and then tossing and turning around what's going to be ahead of us in terms of, are we going to be presenting online all the time or hybrid? And so there's a lot of stuff which is in the air. So I'm mindful of the challenges that you're in, and, you know, all we can do is our best. That's it. Yeah. And I think we are. You can be prepared and plan. And if we stuff up at different stages, then so be it. We just learn from it and keep moving forward. All we got to do, turning up, is the hard part, and just getting started and getting going. So Ryan, over to you. I'm going to pass the ball this time. Nice. Good catch.
Yeah, that's where you are in my screen, so I was coming from there. Well, I thought Wednesday was very informative and productive for me, considering my principal pretty much had no information regarding what I was doing in our main meeting on Monday. Like I didn't even know we were using Schoology until Wednesday. So because I mean, I was told, our principal said on Monday he didn't know if elementary was using Schoology at all this year.
Right.
So it's like, and then Wednesday, apparently all of our stuff is on Schoology, right? So, I mean, it was nice to finally know that, and at least we have, you know, another week here to kind of figure it all out and set it up.
Yeah.
I already went through and added all my classes, so
nice.
I think I'm feeling a little bit better about it than I was a few days ago, for sure.
And next week, I understand that you've got the next week to put aside for some planning as well. Please reach out to any of us. I'll be available. If you want to organise a Zoom session privately with me, personally with me, to go over anything, please feel free to email me and we'll work out a time. Your 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock in the afternoon works for me, because that's sort of the first thing in the morning. It's more of a realistic time. It's more around 9 o'clock in the morning as opposed to sort of 3 in the morning. So if you ever do next week want to dig into any of the detail or get clarification on anything, please just email me and we'll work out a time. And as the same with Brian and Chris and Nate and Aileen, I'm sure they will be more than available moving forward to help answer anything. Okay, let's just spend a little bit more time. Does anyone else sort of got anything sort of burning in their mind or want to sort of add?
Hey, Duncan and everyone. I'm excited about the uniformity throughout all the schools, you know, same terminology, same attitude, you know, that's exciting for me. You know, I did 10 years down here on my own, and then Stratford, when they bought us over, that was one of the best things is everyone being on the same page, even though down here in Southern California, Stratford brand across the board, you know, everyone doing the same thing. I'm excited about that.
Well, thanks, Ted. And we'll use that positive note to sort of push forward then now today in terms of today's agenda. And I'm going to share my screen in a minute, and I'm going to, it'll draw us to the Schoology side again, our Schoology course, and I'm going to show what I've added in the thread. And so it just brings your attention to how the thread works. And the thread is going to be a continual opportunity for us to participate in what's called professional learning communities. So it's going to be an ongoing discussion that we're going to have. I touched on it the other day. It's a good opportunity for us to continue to grow professionally and learn, especially during the rollout of the new curriculum. So the first point is what I've captured. I'm going to share my desktop. Can everyone see the Schoology page here? Does that come up?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. All right. So these are the folders where files are kept all within here. But down here, you'll see there's some threads. Now, I've opened up and started this discussion thread. So this is PLC, Professional Learning Community, Reflections on our PD Day in August. So these are just sort of reflections, and what I've done in here is I've captured some of the key topics and some of the hot topics that came out of Wednesday's session. And we'll talk about them in a minute, and then please feel free after this, throughout next week, to add to this section whenever you feel the need. Assessing students online and PE communication. So there are two more aspects that I'll talk about now. So if I click on that, it comes up now with simply boxes, and this becomes a thread. So I thought this was the best way to capture some of the feedback. So what we can do after this is you go and add any extra ideas or any things that you believe were the key takeaways from Wednesday's sessions. But the first one was, obviously there are challenges for teaching online and teaching PE online, and that is, there's no doubt that is a challenge that we're faced with. Hopefully the preparation we're putting in and the support we're providing will give you the opportunity to be successful when teaching online. But please, I'm mindful, and everyone is mindful, that it is extremely challenging. What you did last year and how you adapted to teaching online was sensational. It was really impressive. And yeah, and I'm sure that'll continue on with this new structure, because it's very similar. Ensuring consistency and quality of teaching via Zoom. I think that came up a fair bit the other day. We were discussing that. It's hard to bring that energy to the room all the time. You know, it's different. It is different than teaching an academic subject per se, because you've got to be in front, in center, in front of the camera, bringing that energy, and you're expected to do that 4 or 5 times a day in that session. It is tough. And that's where the self-care thing comes in, and trying our best to look after ourselves, to get into that frame of mind before we go on and teach. And we're going to need to continually support each other when it comes to that. Adapting instructional models on the go. I think that's a key point too. So we're going to have to be ready to nuance and to respond depending upon where the waivers are given, what directions or regulations the counties provide when we're moving from instructional online teaching to hybrid teaching. But keep in mind that we're going to be doing this unit that we've planned, you know, for the next 6 weeks. And then after that, just for a heads up, if we do go back to a hybrid model, the second unit of work that we'll develop will probably be more around what's called a net and wall unit, which is not the unit I've already created. So I've created a whole sequence of units on invasion games, but I think invasion games won't comply to the regulations around safe use of equipment in a distant learning model and what's expected when we go back to schools. So it'll probably be more a net and wall game, which is things like badminton, tennis, where you can keep your distance, where there are opportunities to be able to create some cool activities around that. And one of the key, for example, one of the key assessment tasks or assessment foci in net and wall will be object control. And object control, the concept of object control, that comes up in the physical literacy continuum that I think many of you have got in the back of your classrooms there, the big pamphlet, the big brochure poster that I shared with you at the beginning of the last PD session. object control is a big section of movement competencies. So you've got your fundamental movement skills or locomotor skills, then you've got object control, and then you've got combinations where you're combining your fundamental movement skills and your locomotor skills with object control, then lends itself to them students being able to then be at a state where they can start participating in small groups and small games. But you do need to have some sort of mastery over object control and the fundamental movement skills before you can move into that more game sort of situation. And the net and wall, you can do, I think we'll be able to get creative on how we adapt to object control activities, even if we have to do it at home. And just the concept of object control, how do I control this object, whether it be a stationary object, whether it be a moving object, a ball. And then object control also moves into activities such as skateboarding and riding a push bike and surfing, where you're controlling an object, but it's actually moving, and you're controlling an object sometimes where there are forces attached to that which you don't have control. So the layers of complexity get a lot more difficult. So just in going into a unit of work that is net and wall, if we're thinking about the assessment focus of object control, that's the terminology, that's the language that we'll be using all throughout that unit. So that's something that we will consider when we're going to have to move to that hybrid type model. Asynchronous expectations. Okay, so I won't elaborate on that yet. I'll sort of have a session on that, but I'll talk about asynchronous expectations in a little bit. Teaching schedules. That's a hot topic from the other day that came up with a few people. Expectations from principals of how much you need to teach, how much is expected of you to teach online. What I would say is, there's some stuff which is out of my control, obviously, but I am your cheerleader, or cheerperson. So if you are having any situations in your environment that you feel that what's been asked of you is unfair, out of the realm of what you'd normally do, then email me. Okay, and then I'll sort of follow it up as well. Obviously, it's best if you can try and resolve it yourself with your leadership at the school. But if it gets to the point that you are having difficulty resolving an issue that you feel that you're being highly unfairly treated, please email me, and then we'll work out a plan after that. The way I'm thinking about it is you're expected to teach a certain amount of classes each week within your contract of face-to-face teaching minutes. You'd like to think that you're not being asked to teach more teaching minutes because you've gone to a distant learning model. You'd like to think that it's less, if anything, because of the different type for the planning that's involved. But I was just thinking about it in terms of if you're teaching X amount of lessons per week, that would be a similar sort of model of what you would be expected to teach online. Nate, Nate, correct me if I'm wrong, but is that similar sort of in terms of teaching time and expectations?
It's hard to say because it differentiates amongst all the campuses. Like as of right now, Rainer's each session is about 40. I think they were trying to stay true to what we asked of them as far as like 2 sessions a week for like 30. Raise your hand if it's more than 40 for you guys. Raise your hand if it is. I'm assuming everybody else is less. So
okay.
I'm exactly 40, Nate. So you assumed wrong.
Ryan, are they still giving you multiple classes throughout the entire week as opposed to 2? You're doing like 5, like you were saying?
So as it stands now, I have each grade together 4 times a week. But it's only, so I have 5 classes a day, 4 times a week. So the total minutes isn't bad. It's just that I have to come up with 2 extra lessons.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think is ultimately I don't really want to fight because other specialty teachers have it way worse than I do, and I kind of feel like a prick if I complain. Like our music teacher's teaching 8 classes a day, 5 days a week. So
yeah, that's a mature way to think about it, Ryan, because it's about equity is one thing and fairness is another, isn't it? You know?
Yeah.
So you have to sort of balance out what's happening in your campus, what other teachers are getting asked of them. But if you want to, if at any stage you need to brainstorm, bounce off, need ideas for the extra sessions, please reach out.
Okay.
Just curious, Ariel, Josh, I'm assuming, are yours 45 or 50-minute periods?
Ours are 50. I believe me and Josh have like the same middle school
Yeah.
schedule, like Nick and Vanessa did it the same.
Yeah,
I
same.
just have a quick question. So how many classes per day are we supposed to be doing? I mean, according to a contract. I'm not aware of that. I'm not sure.
Maximum should be 5 a day.
5? Okay, so if
No way.
So we're supposed to have 70 minutes of prep a day. That's what
Yeah.
PE for elementary, it's 70 minutes of prep a day. So like whether or not it's like 70 minutes each day, like the amount of time within the week, we should get 350 minutes of prep. So if you have more, if you have that, like if you don't have that much time, prep time, the schedule needs to be adjusted.
Yeah. Raise your hand if you have that much prep time. I think anyone's gonna raise their hand.
I have Monday off for prep, and then Tuesday through Friday I teach classes. So I'm teaching
nice.
like 7 or 8 classes a day.
But you have that, but then like that, all that time is made up for just on Monday since you don't teach.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
I have the same schedule, Pam. I'm off on Monday and I teach.
Yeah, they all like.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm pretty
first-
down with
each other.
the Monday off thing, to be honest.
first I was off Monday, but I have 3 classes on Monday too now. So I have 7 per day and I have 3 on Monday.
But you're getting
Seems like
time
way too
off for
much.
lunch and breaks and stuff.
I don't think we have break, but we have a lunch break.
Yeah,
I
okay.
got a break from 10 to 10:30. I played around with my schedule and stuff. So, and then we have kind of an hour lunch. So,
Is there anyone here who's doing TK through 8th? Nobody?
No.
I do K through 8. Brian.
K through 8? Okay, we're in the same boat, Ted. All right.
Ours are 30 minutes twice a week with each grade.
Okay.
That's how it should be, I'd imagine. But different grades, I think they're still trying to work it out. It's quite complex with the Online Learning Academy as well, and how they're balancing out Online Learning Academy with distant learning. So it's going to be, all I can suggest is keep an open conversation with your principals and, make the decisions based on what you're willing to do and what you think is fair and acceptable within the context of your school, and plan well and look after yourselves, because it's tough. You probably won't be in a situation. I say this, but this is probably one of the most trickiest situations that you'll be faced with, challenging teaching instructional sort of expectations of you. But I think at the same time, looking at the positive side, we're all learning new skills. And I think we've also come together as a group, as a PE group, a lot stronger over the last 12 months as well. So there's a lot of nice cohesion there and a nice respect for everybody within the group. And I think that's really important too for the health of the PE department moving forward. The other point, that's the last point that I had there, was becoming familiar with the new PE Teacher's Handbook. So I just do encourage people to take the time over the next week to digest the content in the PE Teacher's Handbook. And then obviously feel free to reach out to any of us if you have any questions regarding that. Okay. So just moving on now. Then in that same thread, because this was all about the reflections on that day, I attached this document here, which is the Planning for Success. This document is also in the in our Schoology course. So it's also, when you go to my professional development, if I go to August, you'll find it in there as well. Okay. Now, I'm going to go here. What I'd like to talk about now is assessing students online. Then I'm going to talk about communications, and then I'm going to talk about asynchronous expectations. And after that, that will probably take us up to the end of the session. But during these different topics, we can pause at different times and just sort of dig into it a little bit more. So I put some thought into this over the last day after reflecting upon the session, and I think it was George came up with a really good point, is that if you've got 40 students in front of you, because they're combining classes, and we're putting this focus on the importance of assessing, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough to assess multiple students within a 6 to 8 week period, seeing them twice a week for 30 minutes, and they're all online. There's no doubt about that. So the degree of assessment, or the thoroughness of your assessment, it is definitely going to be different than what you would have the opportunity to do if you were teaching them face to face. But it doesn't mean we cannot do it. And there are some strategies that I've outlined that will help us with our assessment. And this is a discussion thread. So I do encourage people to contribute their own ideas to this thread after the session today, to continue on continue on the learning. So I'm just going to go through some of these strategies. We talked about a few of them last on Wednesday. So here's the first one: targeted cohort and anecdotal evidence. What I've found to work in the past is, okay, for this week, I'm just say wait for the first couple of weeks. I always say wait for the first couple of weeks until you can start sort of really honing in on some form of more assessment, unless you're doing some sort of pre-assessment. So, for example, if I was going to go ahead and teach this Zoom lesson coming up, I'm going to choose 5 students. So I've got 5 students in my head. I've got their names down on my anecdotal record book. And during the lesson, even though I'm engaging and talking and directing the lesson to everyone in the class, there's another part of me which is just focusing on these 5 kids. And I'm focused, and I've identified 1 thing or 2 things that I'm looking at within these 5 kids. So I'm seeing 1, how engaged are they? 2, do they show good form? Let's just say they're the 2 things that I'm going to focus on. So you're just going to have that targeted group that you're focusing on. Then the next week or the next lesson, you've got another group that you're just targeting on, another group of kids. So that targeted cohort anecdotal evidence strategy is good for honing in your assessment. There are other ways that you can gauge how students are performing and progressing. And that is obviously their participation, general participation in the class. It's their attendance, if they're turning up to class. That's a big thing. Is their vocabulary that they're using. That's something that you can look at in terms of compiling assessment data. Is during the lesson, when they are talking or providing feedback or answering questions, are they using the terminology and the vocab that you're exposing them to? The well-being journaling is pretty important. Journaling and self-assessment is really important. Self-assessment is probably the main tool or strategy that you can use when you're teaching online to a big group of people. You set up the tools for assessment, but you don't always have to be the one assessing. When we go back into the hybrid sessions and model and the face-to-face model, other strategies such as peer assessment is also a valuable way to gain evidence and to gain information. So well-being journal and getting students to reflect upon how they're feeling, what they're eating, drinking, doing is really important. So you can set up some form of journaling and use the term journaling, because you'll hear the journaling used in a lot of the social media sites these days on health and well-being, and how important journaling is to one's mental health. Also, capturing any evidence that the students are doing extra stuff at home on their own. How you gather that information is up to you, but that is also another way to be able to identify if students are sort of progressing well in your class. This here, next section here, I think is a really, really valuable tool. And the thinking behind it is that giving students the opportunity to target specifically what they want to work on, what they want to develop. Now, this can be set up in a rubrics. It can be, you can take this information and present it any way that you want to the kids. But the basic construct behind it, the thinking behind it is that, for example, here are over 10 different areas that you could present to the students and just say, okay, Abe, you're in my class. Abe, choose one, just one of those things that you want to focus on in the next month when we're in class. So, Abe, let's just say, can you choose one of those key points that you want to focus on in class for me? Is Abe there? I'm not sure. Ted, okay. Can I ask you, Ted?
I would say bringing as much energy as possible on the Zoom for me and for them.
So just say you're the kid in the class. Just say that's your thing that you've chosen. You could then use that as your focus for journaling. And it's giving them a real targeted focus of, it's like goal setting, but goal setting is really difficult. If you just say to a student, it doesn't matter what year they're in, whether it be grade 3 or grade 8, write a goal for this term. Okay, think of a goal that you want to focus on during this term for PE. That's a really hard thing to do. Even writing goals, writing process goals, product goals, putting time constraints on it, putting milestones attached to it are really tricky. So this just is a really nice, simple way to be able to give the students choice. So if you give them all this choice, you're going to have maybe 2 or 3 kids going to choose the first point. A couple of different kids will choose the 6th point. Other kids are going to choose what reaches to them, what talks to them. And then after 2 or 3 weeks, switch it around. Say, right, I want you to choose another goal now, another area that you're going to focus on and intentionally work on during our class sessions. It gives them a focus. And so they're the ideas that I came up with just as a brainstorm myself. So let's add to that. In this discussion thread, as we go over the next couple of weeks, let's add to that. This becomes a really valuable resource for you to come back to at different times. So I'm Duncan, I'm in Dave's class and we're doing our jump rope circuit activity. But for the next 3 weeks, I'm going to participate in all and do my best in everything, but I'm particularly focusing on making sure I do write in my journal. And that's going to be something I really bring my attention to. And then we switch it around after that. As I says down here, it says choose a goal every 4 weeks, your journal progress and share progress with your teacher at organized check-in points. Okay. So that's some suggestions for assessing online. Let's just spend a couple of minutes now. If anyone off the top of their head has any other suggestions that they think they would add to this thread once we get offline.
I plan to use Kahoot. It's the online quizzing app. Usually like as a warm-up or as they're entering in, just to kind of reiterate what we covered the day or the lesson prior. After observing other classes and other subjects, like a lot of the kids really like that kind of like gaming style, competitive setting. So they really excel in that.
That's awesome. That's awesome, Nate. So this is the beauty of this type of platform on Schoology. So Nate can go away and he can add to this thread and provide some links around some information around Kahoot. how it works in the classrooms, any resources that he's got, and then continue to add as the year goes. Yeah, I used Kahoot again today, and this happened, and this worked, this didn't work. Here's a suggestion. So these threads are going to continue on and be live. Okay. So I suppose in terms of talking about intentional goals for us as a group, if we intentionally think, okay, I'm going to spend 15 minutes on Schoology thread every day, or 10 minutes on my Schoology thread contributing to it, we're going to get some really rich discussions and professional learning going on. Okay. So in your head, you could say, right, 15 minutes TikTok, 15 minutes Schoology. Okay, I'm going to give up 15 minutes of TikTok and I'm going to put it onto Schoology. Start off with 5 minutes maybe, just to start it off with, because then it becomes a habit. And once you turn it into a habit, it's going to be easier to do. So that's a great one, Nate. Thanks for that. And now you've got a little bit of work to do after this. Does anybody else want to add something like that?
Hey, Duncan, is there a list of outside resources we're able to use? For example, like that Go Noodle website there. The kids really like that, you know, the videos and the guided activities. Or YouTube. Are we limited on outside resources that we can bring in?
Not at all. So that's a really good point. So what we do here, I've just gone back to our course, Ted. If you see here, teaching PE through Zoom. Right. If I go there, this is for example, a whole lot of videos that I've put, like it's a web link, but there are a whole lot of videos from the Department of Education here in Australia produced when everything went online. So feel free to go to these resources and add and use them to supplement and complement, your teaching. So what I'm saying then, Ted, is if anybody, because you can do one or two things. You can add it to a discussion thread, but also if you want something to be put into that that folder, and if anyone comes across a really great resource that you think that it would be fantastic to, for example, Go Noodle, Ted. If you think that should be shared with the whole PE teaching staff, send the link to me, or send me the information via an email, or even via a communication or a message on Schoology, and I'll put it into the folder.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah. So if anyone comes across stuff like that, just shoot it to me. I'll put it in the folder. I'll send you a message. Yeah, such as through Schoology, more than likely. There's a new resource on there, and you go to it and use it to help you with your planning. So that's a good point, Ted. Yeah.
I think that's really good, especially for me, since I'm like adding lessons throughout the week. I'm planning on using those kind of resources on those I guess, curriculum days where I'm not actually teaching from one of our units.
Now, you will, don't forget all the resources that you built last year as well. So you've probably got some really cool stuff that you built into your teaching lessons during last year's distant learning.
Yeah.
But if you want anything to be common, okay, because you've got resources that are going to work just for you, but if you got something that, it's really valuable that all our teachers have access to this because it's really good. What I don't want is just links, because this is why, and I'm not an authoritative person at all or a controlling person, but what happens is, or you may think differently, but I don't think I am, but you don't want to just put a link on just because someone sees a link and they see the first couple of minutes of the link and go, oh, that looks like a really cool idea. I'll put it as a resource. But then you dig into it and it's not really relevant. So if you want something to be added into that folder, maybe a sentence or two around why you think it's a good resource. And when teachers are going into that folder, they've then got a little paragraph or a statement or two to be able to see if that's going to be a worthwhile resource for them to go into and look at it further. Because it's like YouTube, isn't it? You go in there, or the web, and you go in there and you can all of a sudden go down the rabbit hole and end up somewhere where you didn't really plan to be. And you then have wasted all this time and you don't know what the original purpose was for. So resource allocation and making sure they're valuable resources and they've got a purpose is pretty important.
I got those dance resources, guys, for when you teach your dance unit. I got you.
Oh, dance is coming. Dance is coming,
Eileen,
baby.
Eileen has her own video library of herself dancing.
I was gonna say I have some YouTube links for this kind of like a cartoon called Chloe and the Nerd. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but it's really cool for kindergarten, first grade, and it goes over all like the different like systems of the body. So like the muscular system, the skeletal system, integumentary system. So usually I go over it with the kids, especially if kids get hurt, they get like a scratch or something, go about the integumentary system and how the skin heals itself. But it's these cool little videos, and it's just like a silly little cartoon for the kids, but there's a lot of content involved in it, which is kind of cool. If you wanted to do like a lesson where you're just talking about like the muscular system or the skeletal system, the nervous system, anything like that.
So sorry, Carla, go.
Oh no, because that website, I totally like it because it also provides a lot of worksheets and like fill in the blanks. So there's already lessons pre-attached to that as well, and articles. So it's great.
Yeah.
Could you guys attach that link in the chat? That'd be cool to check out.
Yeah, Brian. So what I'm going to do is, I just had a thought, is I'm going to create another thread here, and it's going to be teaching resources via Zoom, or online teaching resources for PE. And rather than send me the email links, just add them to the thread, because when you go to a thread, you can add links to it. That takes it out. As long as you just write a statement at the top about why this resource is good and how you used it, as opposed to just throwing a link and saying, here's a link. Saying, here's a link, these are the cool things about it, and this is how I integrated into my class. That gives us a little bit more direction in terms of why we're putting the link up there. And then what I will do is I'll copy the resource and put it into this folder as well. Okay, so they'll be in two spots, because sometimes a thread can continue on and on and on, and all of a sudden, the only problem with the threads is that if it becomes really long, you forget where that original resource was, because it ends up being a really, it could be pages and pages long. So what I'll do is put it on the thread, and then I will also make a copy of that and put it into the folder on our Schoology course as well. So it'll be in two spots. Does that make sense, everybody? Do I see thumbs up?
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
Cool. I regress here. I was going to start the session off and just talking about this, about just a general what our sort of aim is, and I just want to talk about this now. Is our aim, when we are teaching kids in any form, whether it be PE or whether it be a different academic subject, I talk about it as a continuum. So the kids are going to come in with different experiences and different abilities, different motivations, and they're going to be here. They're going to be here on their continuum. Our goal as teachers and educators is to move them along the continuum. The continuum being your health and well-being continuum. So just say they come in here at the end of our units of work or the end of the lesson, our responsibility is to move them along. Now, you're going to not always be able to move students along to the point where you want them to get to. Students are going to move along that continuum at their own pace, obviously. But it is essential that we do move them in that direction and not that direction. So how do we then, get to move them along that continuum. And I always go back to 3 principles, and especially with the online learning, it's our modeling and what we bring to the classes ourselves as a PE teacher. So modeling, modeling, modeling. Everything you say, do, speak, the students feel, the students take on. And that's really important, especially when you're in the spotlight all the time over Zoom. Feedback, feedback, feedback. Chris gave a fantastic lesson the other day. Everyone did, but Chris, the feedback that you're giving the kids consistently is their motivation. Because if they feel you and they really genuinely see that you care about them, you're giving them feedback, that is what's going to motivate them to continue to participate in class. So if you have kids and you're going to have lots of them who aren't giving it what you think they can give in a class, it's our responsibility then as the teachers, as the educators, to come up with ways to motivate them. And feedback and relationships and positive modeling are 3 ways to be able to help motivate students, to move them along that continuum. And what is that continuum? Where are we trying to move them to? Well, we've got the standards that we're trying to achieve and trying to meet during the unit of work. But the end goal is for us to create physically literate students. And that goes back to our vision, which was in our PE handbook at the very beginning. So our aim is, and we always should revert back to this vision of, our aim is to not produce elite athletes, to not produce great tennis players. It's produce students who are motivated, who've got the physical competencies to continue on, and skills and knowledge to continue on in movement activities and healthy choices as they grow. And that is our aim. And if we always revert back to that, then we're always going to have a strong foundation and a strong philosophical position to guide our teaching and what we're doing. So please, I'm going to add that teaching links through Zoom, or add some connections onto that. It's 4:30 in the morning here, so I imagine it's 11:30 there in the morning, is it? Does everyone want to take a 5-minute break, and we'll finish off for the last 25 minutes or so in a positive way? You might want to go for a bathroom break, grab a drink of water or something, and then we'll come back in 5 minutes. Is that cool?
Sounds good.
Okay. Stretch the legs, have a bit of a break. We'll come back in 5.
Sweet. Hey, is Carla? Oh, Carla just went out. I was going to say that Kids Health, that's the same thing for Chloe and the Nerd, I believe, right?
Yeah, that's the one. That's actually where you can get a whole bunch of the curriculum, the articles, the word fill and
Yeah, all the worksheets and stuff.
I love that website. That's so great.
It's cool, right?
Yeah, and the kids, I used it for summer school, and they kind of wanted to like keep watching it because it was just so engaging, and they learned so much.
Yeah. I did one on the. I had a couple kids in my class during a rainy day that weren't listening, so I did a whole lesson on the ears and how they work.
Yes.
and then those kids were like, oh.
I like the scary one with the dirty fingernails and all that.
Oh,
Some
yeah.
of them hide.
Yep. Yeah. Oh yeah.
It's good for perfect time now for Corona. So.
Exactly. Yeah, going over the immune system and all that stuff.
Yeah. What I didn't know about that website was I initially used it for elementary, and I didn't realize they had middle school stuff too.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah, they have a lot of stuff. It's cool.
Yeah. I'll be back.
Me too.
Well, Duncan, I heard in Australia
they have like a big debate between Vegemite and Marmite. Which one are you?
Mate, there's no debate at all. Vegemite wins hands down.
Oh
Mate,
man,
that other stuff is crap.
Yeah, they say. I saw this Australian video of them arguing about it. It was terrific, and then they outcasted the dude that liked Marmite.
Oh yeah, they get thrown off the island, mate. It's basically salt and yeast anyway, but it's good for a hangover because it's got a lot of salt and vitamin B in it. So it's the hangover cure over here. If you had a big night, you have a cup of black tea and a couple of pieces of Vegemite toast, and you're fixed up.
Oh, that's what I'm talking about right there. I gotta come over to your house.
You need that, George. You need that for hangover relief, since you always complain.
I never complain. I've never had a hangover in my life.
Always complain.
That's because you're always drunk, George. That's why you don't have a hangover.
No, there's a reason, and the person that's talking over there is mostly the reason.
I have nothing to do with that, George. Stop trying to blame me for that. I don't drink.
George. I think I'm on your side here, George. I'm on your side here, man.
You know it.
I've seen her in action. I've seen her in action.
No, you saw a bottle on my counter, Duncan. That's not in action.
That was for the kids, was it?
Yeah. It helps them sleep. One of them's teething, you know.
That's how I was brought up on. I was going to start off the session saying I was feeling very nostalgic this morning when I got up, because I came over to my dear mum's house last night and she cooked me up a big macaroni and cheese, which is the meal that I had once a week for about 20 years. And I hadn't had it for so long. So I came over and had this big bowl of mac and cheese last night. It was just awesome. Homemade. Dear mum's homemade mac and cheese.
What kind of cheese does she use? Or like, what's so special about it? Besides your mom cooking it.
It's mom cooking.
You're not cooking it yourself?
I didn't have to cook it because I cook at home. So it was like coming home, giving a beer on the table and a meal poured out to her. So it was luxury.
Nice.
I heard somebody say mac and cheese when I was coming back in. We talking about macaroni and cheese now?
That was my meal last night. Yeah.
Oh, okay. How was it made? Was it made Southern style on top of the stove?
It's in like a casserole. So you throw in you cook the macaroni, put it in, then you put some butter mushrooms in there, some sour cream.
What? You said mushrooms?
Butter mushrooms. There you go. There's the trick.
Butter mushrooms. Oh,
this is Australian style down here, brother.
You got to try the Southern style, Duncan.
Mate, I did hit the southern states there a couple of times when I was living over there, and the food was incredible. Food is amazing. Fried up, everything. I loved it.
That fried life.
Sure. I like what Dave dropped in: truffle oil and bacon. Everything's good with bacon.
Oh yeah, that's awesome. Okay, I'll be back in 1 sec. We'll get going.
Thank you, Eileen, for the Zoom link.
Welcome, Amuda.
Okay, I think we might get started again. So this is probably the next, this last session will probably go for 20, 25 minutes and then break for lunch, and then the afternoon is over to you. But as you can see, we've set up the platform for our communication to be continual and to a really good opportunity to keep sharing stuff. So what I want to talk about first is the PE communications. Now, Aileen very selflessly spent some time during the summer break and wrote up 2 templates for communicating. So communicating to parents is really important, but what we've done here also is created 2 templates. And the templates are, the first template is the beginning of school newsletter. So when we go back to school, obviously we have to create some form of communication to send to parents of the kids that we're teaching, of our classes. And then we also need to send a monthly newsletter. So for the parents, we won't be expected to send an update or a newsletter each week like we were last year. The expectation is to send a monthly newsletter which outlines some of the curriculum that we'll be focusing on, some of the work that we're doing, some feedback from how things are going. But here are 2 templates. So I just clicked on them. So this is the first template. This is for the parents, and this is for the beginning of the year. So it's a little welcome here in that first paragraph. This is obviously that you can nuance this any way that you wish. But the aim of the first paragraph is simply to introduce yourself, give a little bit of a background about your educational, professional experience, what our goals are. You can also add to that if you want. You can put in some work around what a Stratford physical literate student looks like. If you want, it's up to you. Start of the year, all about having resources. It's all there. Aileen put a lot of work into developing this. We went through it together and we did a few edits on it. So it's there for you all help. It's there to help guide you write your own communication. And then we go to this one, which is the monthly one. So obviously you'll send out one at the beginning of the school year, and then in another month later, you will send out another newsletter. So as long as we're communicating with your parents at least once a month in terms of what we're doing in PE. And this is going to change, isn't it, depending upon where we are at with the counties and the waivers and what type of instructional model that we're working within. So this is actually has a little bit more detail around the standards that we are addressing during the following month coming up. So if you were writing this letter and this is to your grade 1 parents, obviously they don't need to have all the grade 4, 5, 6 to 8 indicators and standards that they're focusing on. So you'll just delete them. And then there's a few reminders about Schoology and water. How will the students access the work that they're doing? Now it's going to be a little bit different than last year because the asynchronous work is not going to be compulsory, but we need to have asynchronous activities in their Schoology course to give them ideas and guidance if they want to do extra work at home, or if they want to do if you're going to ask them to do some journaling for some assessment, then they will get access that through their Schoology page. So there could be a folder in your own Schoology page that you set up for your classes that is asynchronous work, or with the younger ones, asynchronous probably is not a term that they're going to resonate with. So it'd be more like cool stuff to do, cool movement activities to do at home on your own, things like that. And that's where you can sort of draw upon those resources. So that's a nice little segue into the asynchronous expectations. Now, I'm just going to pause there for a minute, and I'm going to ask, has anyone been given any expectation or been provided any guidance from your principals about what's expected for asynchronous work for PE or for specialty subjects?
No.
No.
I feel like my principal
Not
has
at all.
actually been asking. My principal has been asking me for more information. Like they haven't been hearing anything about PE or any of the specialties actually.
They have too many other problems to figure out right now, like getting the schedule straight.
Exactly. I say I think their main focus is Schoology and all the other classroom subjects.
Sorry. Even though there is no emphasis on it right now, it would be great to stockpile what you have. Make sure you're trying to build now and prep, and then adapt accordingly. So anything of activities that you feel like the kids would be able to do on their own and something that they can sustain, stockpile it now and keep record of it. So once it does drop and it's expected of us more, we have something to fall back on.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
So quick question. You said it's not going to be, we're going to have it, but they're not going to be required to do it, right? Because that's where I got snagged last year is you give me a way to try to enforce them doing asynchronous work and I'll tell you a way they'll fake it. And I couldn't figure out a way, if they wanted to. But it's great to have lots of options for the kids who do want to do it. And we should have tons of stuff, but I just don't see how you effectively enforce asynchronous class. I was supposed to have a regular class and an asynchronous class, and I did what I could, but I'm like, I don't know how you can force, aside from them recording a 50-minute video, I don't see how you can enforce them doing this.
I had some of my students send me videos of them working out in their own time, and it wasn't like I didn't want a 10-minute video, but I was like, just give me a quick 10-second video of you doing a proper jumping jack.
But then you've only enforced them doing 10 seconds.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, but I mean that's for I'm lower level, so I'm TK, kindergarten, first and second. So for them to send something out like that and actually put that input in is just showing that they're trying.
Yeah.
So asynchronous.
Sorry.
No,
I was
you go.
just going to
Sorry,
say that we normally don't have our students do homework or assignments anyway in person, and we are seeing them the same amount of time. So I'm not sure that we would necessarily need to do that. We could do it for optional stuff, but yeah.
Definitely optional, because what we go back to is what standard and indicators are we focusing on with our assessment during the unit, and it's what you are focusing on in your face-to-face or Zoom teaching. So anything that's non-accessible is that is non-accessible is extra, or it's just there for the kids if they want to do it or support them.
Yeah, I look at it more as an extra resource for the kids that want to do more and the parents that are asking for it. So I think, like Nate said, it'd just be great just to start putting it in there. That way you can fall back on it and say, hey, this is some extra stuff that you want to do. If 2 days a week is not good enough for you, here's some extra stuff that you guys can do on the other days.
Right. Yeah, I think it's a good visual for parents to see too. That we have these options for the kids so they can do it on their own.
Yeah, I give them something called the mile walks. So they record their time and record their amount of miles they walk every day. So that just keeps track and makes the parents happy because they want to do it, because they have challenges between classrooms. Which classroom has walked the most or biked the most or hiked the most wherever they go. So keeping track of what they are doing, I just give them extra activity like that.
Plus, these kids got so much other work that they're doing too for their other classes. It's insane.
Yeah.
It's a good point. I'm working, as I think I mentioned it on Wednesday, I'm working with one of the Department of Sports here on they've developed this program called Race Around Australia, and they're rolling it out to a whole lot of thousands of schools here, which is an app which sort of, okay, if you work in teams and then you go for a walk and you track it on an app, and the team gets a certain amount of kilometers, and the aim is to get it all around Australia. I think, Brian, you've mentioned that there's something been like that done in the past. It's really easy to do with Google Maps, but I'm working at using the principles of that design to apply to Stratford, where you can have campus versus campus, and it's a race around America or it's a race around California, and they cumulatively add up the amount of miles that they've clocked up. But if they do a hit circuit for 20 minutes, for example, that's equal to 4 miles. And then they input that into their Google pins, and work their way around. So that's something that a really cool project that we can work towards. It's a little ways away, but it's a good way to get some healthy competition between campuses and even between classes. It's a good motivator to get kids moving and get them out there. So that's hold that spot, and we'll come back to that one. So
hey, my kids are gonna race to LA to Ted. What's up,
There
Ted?
we go.
Nice. So just on the asynchronous. Yes, Ariel, sorry.
Oh, sorry. I had that same question Chris had, just because I haven't heard anything on my campus, but all the like monthly newsletters and parent newsletters, they now just go onto Schoology. We're only using the portal for grades. So because we used to post them there, but we don't do that anymore, right?
Yes, everything's via Schoology now. You don't have to directly email the parents. They should have, if they have your course codes, they should get they could put whether or not they want to get your notifications and all that. Oh, and also for the, what was that?
How does that process work? Are we emailing the classroom teachers to send their parents our access codes for school?
Yeah, you're gonna have to talk to your principals about that. It might differentiate per campus, because our principal said that they want our access codes, but some of the other campuses might say send your access codes to the actual school teacher or the
We're having to manually input every kid into the class at my school to cause problems. And the problem is that a lot of them aren't even in the system yet. So I have incomplete rosters. Even though I've started it, I've got everyone logged in who's in the system. We're missing lots of kids from the system. So
they're working out the kinks. Like I know, especially for like online, because I am one of the online teachers, I think, but like I also get, I'm going to get kids from other campuses also. So it's just, their lists aren't updated yet. So just do the best you can.
Sorry, just to go back to the templates that were sent, my principal specifically said, put a section about like, since we're not going into school, like put a section about like Zoom and the expectations that you have via Zoom, because like, I'm sure that last year, there's a lot of, different what principals told the PE teachers, but like you do have to record, they have to have their cameras on, and that's stuff that if they don't have their cameras on, they can't be in the Zoom, like in your Zoom meeting at all. So just make sure you put something about that in the parent letter and the newsletter as well about Zoom.
And is it mandatory this time, or is it still optional?
I believe it's mandatory now.
It's mandatory now, yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so along those lines, are we physically taking attendance? And then if a parent has a problem with the recording and they want to watch the recording later, how do we incorporate that into attendance taking?
No clue. I wish I could tell you, Ryan.
It's a good question.
I don't know if parents are going to be given access to video recording, because there's going to be some privacy issues with that.
No, they are able to see that's one of the reasons why they want us to record too, is just in case if their
kid misses something.
Yeah.
I believe via Zoom you could have a recording link to a password. So the only ones that could access that particular video has to also have the password.
Right.
So I might talk to you offline about that, Nate, because how do you, if you've got a 40-minute video, or you're going to have a whole lot of video stored on your computers, and then how
It's
do you
all in the
transfer
cloud.
it?
You do it on the Zoom cloud.
All on Zoom Cloud, and then you just
You
create
don't have
a
to
link.
actually save it to your computer. It's just a link. Yeah.
Okay, got it. Okay. So just with this asynchronous, just the last final thing here, gang, is this asynchronous learning is as we move into the next stage, like this, I was talking to Jeremy the other day, this year coming, we're really just going to continue to focus on the rollout of PE and, to the stage where next year we've got all the units written and we've got a full rollout next year. This year we're piloting a few different units, and then we're going to gather some feedback on the implementation, what we've done well, what could be done better. Then we'll continue to write the other units up to have all the units for every year group ready for the beginning of the rollout next year. Although we'll probably have to be flexible, adaptable at different stages this year, because we're going to have to create some units that are sort of more applicable to teaching online at different points. So one of the discussions I was having with head office earlier on is about reviewing health at the school. Who's responsible for teaching health? Where does health fit into the curriculum, especially now that you've implemented a new science curriculum throughout Stratford as well? And often there are links between science and some of the physical sciences that we're linking to health. Now, we all talk about healthy practices and well-being as a part of sort of our jobs anyway, but it's not an official subject per se. We talk about, nutrition, we talk about drinking water, about good sleeping patterns, we talk about mindfulness and mental health, but we do that in an ad hoc way. It's not attached to an assessment criteria. It's not attached to a formal curriculum. And yeah, we want to get to making that a formal curriculum as we move forward, but not yet because there's so much going on. But what I've done is I've linked up some resources here for you to have a look at in your own time. Now, you can use some of these resources to add asynchronous activities, optional asynchronous activities on your Schoology sites, Schoology courses. This is the first one. And let me say that when we do roll out a health curriculum, this Mind Up curriculum, which is a part of what's called the Goldie Hawn Foundation. She set up a foundation about 7-8 years ago and developed a whole lot of teaching resources around mental health and well-being, and they're superb. They're really fantastic resources. It talks also about, it brings neuroscience into a format where kids can understand. And it talks about the different parts of the brain and how they operate and how they affect our feelings and emotions. And it's really, really cool stuff. So what I've done is I've just provided links here in this link here. Brian actually helped us with the links. If you want to get it through Kindle or through audiobook or anything like that, you can get it, or you can also order it online. But what I would suggest is, if you want and you're interested in that sort of stuff, it's a really good curriculum to start becoming familiar with. And as we go into building out the health curriculum, I think the Mind Up, we would be taking parts of the Mind Up curriculum, and it would make up a portion of what would be our health curriculum at Stratford. So that's the Mind Up, the Goldie Hawn Foundation. Social emotional learning. These are two really good resources. One's called the SEL Solution from Jonathan Irwin. It's a book. And the Bounce Back program is another program for social and emotional learning competencies. Really good practical ideas to do with your class. And it covers a whole range of areas related to social and emotional learning. Give yourself, when you do have time, I'll just click on that link there. Bang. There you go. It's all about resilience, strengths, and purpose. It's values education. mental health. It's a series of books which are broken down into different stages, years F to 2, 3 to 4, and 5 to 6. There's also older books as well for middle school too. Really great resource for the teaching of social, emotional, healthy habits, etc. And this SEL solution, this Jonathan Irwin is a bit of a guru. He's an American guy, comes out of Buffalo in New York. I've done a bit of work with him. He's this work here, this book is ratified by CASEL, which is the governing body which oversees the quality of social and emotional learning resources that are pumped out throughout the world. And he's a big part of it. So a really great book if you get time to have a look at that. Once again, that would probably make up a part of some of the curriculum when we're looking at introducing mental health initiatives in the school. Nutrition. This is a resource for teaching and learning about health and well-being. It's the World Health Organization. It's a PDF actually. That just gives you some resources that the WHO, World Health Organization, is a really good resource to go to for resources around teaching nutrition and anything to do with health and education. So that's a really another good resource. And many of you, I'm sure, have also got really cool resources for this. So if you, once again, for this one specifically, if you at any time want to shoot me a referral for any of these health resources, email me and we can then add them. Healthy relationships, that's just a little resource I put on around, that is around the power needs. And this one is a really good one I like to, I refer to a bit. Actually, you probably can't see that, can you? I'm just going to share this last. Can you see that it says 7 connecting habits? Does that come up?
Not yet.
Okay.
You need to share the screen.
Yeah. It was there, and now it's not.
Yeah, it was. You got to share the screen.
Okay. You got it now?
There we go.
Okay. This is, and you've heard me talk about mental models and frameworks, and you'll probably get sick of me talking about it, but I just think they're a really good way to structure our thinking and our learning. This is something that I use with kids and I use in my own life all the time. And it's a really nice framework around establishing healthy relationships. So it breaks it down into connecting habits and disconnecting habits. So this is the sort of habits that we want to focus on to connect us together. And here is the habits that tend to bring us apart and fracture relationships if they're focused on that too much. There's a nice saying that William Glasser sort of coined is, if I say or do this at this very time, is it going to bring me closer together to this person or draw me further apart? And it's a really nice saying when you're in a state of frustration or uncertainty, that you just pause and you give yourself a little bit of time and you just say to yourself, okay, if I say this, how is it going to affect my relationship? Because obviously, quite often when we get onto that, go down the rabbit hole of emotional sabotage, we end up saying and doing things that disconnect us from our loved ones. So that's just a nice little framework that's in that Schoology site as well. Okay. I'll just close that off and I'll come back to you guys. All right, I'm back. There we go. It's 5:02 a.m. in the morning. It's 12 o'clock for you guys. It's lunchtime. You must be getting hungry. That concludes our sessions with me. So I'd like to thank you for all of your participation. I've really enjoyed linking up with you guys again and running the sessions. A big thanks to Chris and Eileen, Nate and Brian for all the work that you did over summer. They're going to continue to be a huge resource. And with Brian and Nate in their roles as PE chairs, and with me, we're going to check in with you individually over the course of the next 4 weeks, just to see how you're going with the unit plans, just to see how you're going with documenting the unit plans and using it as a registration, making sure you're keeping that up, and also just as a support. So Brian, Nate, and I will talk offline in regards to organising a schedule of blocking out some time to catch up with you to make sure that you've got the resources and you've got enough support to be successful as we go into what is a difficult and challenging sort of instructional model, but also one that I think that we're all going to grow and learn from as well. Does anybody got any parting words that they want to share with the group before we head off?
I guess I just have, sorry. I guess I just have questions on how people are setting up their Schoology courses. If they're doing just one for every class, or they're doing one course and having folders within there. I think that's, maybe we can do another meeting for that, if Duncan, you need to go or whatever, but I'm just kind of confused on what we're supposed to be doing for that and our Zoom links.
I think the idea is set up a Schoology for each class, because once grading starts, you can only submit grades within each classroom. If you clump them up, you won't be able to do grades to multiple classrooms.
We're still doing the portal for grades, so does it matter if we do that with Schoology? Because like
they want you to have one per class. But it's really easy to copy it. But it's really easy. You make one for each class and you put your attendance in, but then anything you put onto the class, you just copy it to all the other classes. So it's not that complicated to run all of them at once as if it were one class, while still having them separated into individual classes.
So
and
Alyssa,
are you doing
Brian,
one Zoom link? Sorry.
No, Brian, I'm just saying, Brian, I think Alyssa's in your group, is she, or Chris?
She's in my group.
Yeah,
Chris. So maybe Chris is going to be online this afternoon from between 1 o'clock and 3 o'clock. Is that right, Chris?
That's correct.
Okay.
So yeah, so Chris has a link, the same Zoom link that you logged in with him. So feel free to reach out to Chris, and then he and you can brainstorm and get down into the detail of what we're helping him. He will help you set up your Schoology stuff.
Sounds good.
What time are you going to be available, Chris?
At 1.
At 1. All right, rock on.
Just Chris. We'll send you guys the link for Chris.
Chris, can you send me the link, please?
Yeah, I got you.
We're all going to be on. That was a joke. Me, Brian, Nate, and Chris, all of us. So all of our groups, if you guys need anyone,
and it's all,
help with it. Just
it's all on that link. It's all on those links that were on our schedule, right? Our specialty PD schedule. Cool.
Yeah. So if you go to Schoology, I believe it's the Schoology course.
Yeah, we just click Chris, and then all the magic happens.
That is exactly right,
Hey,
Brad.
hey, don't be coming on. Don't be coming on at 3:45. A whole bunch of stuff, man.
What time is this at?
1 o'clock.
I believe it's 1:15.
Oh, is it 1:15? Yeah, whichever. We're on. Yeah.
Chris said 3:45.
Yeah, you can come on at what 1:15? 1:15.
1:15. Okay.
Wait, Eileen, where's your link at?
Where it says your name.
Click on Chris's. I don't know why you're looking for mine. It's on. I'll always send it to our group, right?
Okay, thank you. Just do that.
Okay, guys. Thanks.
Is your Zoom link? Is your Zoom working, Eileen?
We're gonna find out, Amuda. We're gonna, and they reported my computer, so we'll see if it works.
Are you going to send that link to our email, Alina?
Yeah, I'm gonna send it right now, guys.
Yeah, I'll do the same.
Same here.
Yeah, so thanks, Duncan, for
thank you, Duncan,
getting all this stuff together. It was a good time.
Thank you, Duncan.
Thanks.
You guys rock. Good luck, guys.
Good
Thank
job.
you.
Bye.
Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Bye,
Okay,
Duncan.
bye.
Thank you.
See you guys. Pleasure.
Bye, guys.